going on, Juco?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to thank our great Police Commissioner Keechant Sewell for joining us. We also have Chief of Detectives James Essick and Deputy Chief Jason Savino. Once again, our focus is senseless gun violence fueled by gang rivalries and what we're doing to stem the flow of gun violence. Murders and shootings continue to trend down in Brooklyn. It's been a 2-year decline so far, but there's a lot more work to be done. So today we're announcing the indictment of 32 alleged gang members from 2 rival gangs that are responsible for much of the violence in and around Brownsville. This is a significant takedown, both in the size of the takedown, but also in its scope. It's going to have a positive impact on public safety for the residents of Brownsville. The case covers a total of 27 incidents, including 2 homicides and 17 additional non-fatal shootings. Now, those shootings injured 14 people. You're going to learn that some of those people injured were not intended targets, but were innocent bystanders, including a very young child and 2 senior citizens. Throughout the course of our investigation, which started in spring of 2020, we've been able to recover approximately 30 firearms. You'll see some of those firearms here right now. There were additional firearms actually recovered today during the apprehension of some of the perpetrators. And so we're still, the police are still processing those handguns. Now, we allege, and I'm going to ask to show one of the face boards. There's 2 face boards here. The first one are members who have self-identified themselves as member of the gang WOOO, and they're there. And the second one is a face board of the members of the CHOO gang. We allege that all of these defendants collectively are responsible for shootings and other acts of violence and either participated directly in the shooting or directly assisted in these crimes. So removing these individuals from our community will have the desired impact of reducing people who are trigger pullers from our neighborhoods, making Brownsville a safer place to live for the many, many hardworking residents and families who call Brownsville home. The indiscriminate shootings and the disregard for human life by these gang members didn't just cost the lives of fellow rival gang members, but also terrorized law-abiding citizens and residents of our community. And as I've already indicated, injured innocent bystanders, including a 3-year-old girl who was leaving her daycare with her dad. We focus on these 2 gangs during this long-term investigation. They call themselves the WOOO and the CHOO, but they're really a confederacy. They're umbrella organizations composed of several subsets of local street crews and other gangs. Many of the names will be familiar to you. The WOOO consists of OMB, Gorilla Stone Bloods, Mac Baller, Baller Bloods, the 59 Brim, Pistol, Packing, Pitkin, PPP, and other street crews. CHOO has the Notorious Folk Nation members in that, Moving Silence Crew, Hood Stars, and many others as part of that. So these members, they fall under these banners, and they engage in acts of violence against each other. What makes this particular rivalry very unique in terms of Brooklyn is the close proximity by which these folks live together. It's persistent, and the rivalry is so fierce because, as you see on this map, this is a map of a portion of the 7-3 precinct. What you'll see, the red highlighted area are housing developments. There are 5 housing developments in that area, and the gray shaded areas are also 5 housing developments there. The red area is made up of the Glenmore Plaza houses, Seflo houses, Van Dyke, Langston Hughes houses, and Brownsville. It's considered to be WOOO territory. That's where many of the WOOO members live and otherwise engage in their activity. And the gray area, which is Newport Gardens, Marcus Garvey Village, Tilden houses, Riverdale Towers, and up north, the one gray area up north, which is Howard houses, is controlled by the CHOO. Dumont Avenue is really the dividing line between these gangs, and that's where a lot of the shootings and activity take place in that dividing line. You don't have to take it from us. We have a video of a alleged CHOO member, Rolik Green, who's broadcasting on Instagram Live, and much of the antagonism that's between these gangs is fueled by social media. In this, he's standing in the Tilden houses with some fellow CHOO members, and he just simply turns his camera around, and he's focused now on the Brownsville houses. But as you see, they literally are right across the street from each other. It's the senseless nature of this, that people who live as neighbors are sworn enemies because of this gang affiliation. The devastation that this violence has caused in places like Brownsville has been there for a long time. In fact, it's unfortunately become generational, passed through family members and friends, and people who live in certain developments have to be affiliated with members from that same crew. But what we've seen, and during the course of this investigation and others, they're often a spark. There's something that often creates a spike in the increase in violence. And unfortunately, that's what we found in this case. There was a shooting that took place, and a man, unfortunately named Shamel Boomer, was shot and killed July 10th of 2020. And he was actually murdered, we allege, by a Bergen Fam gang member, and that person was arrested and charged with his murder. But just 2 days prior to his murder, this is Shamel Boomer, who was shot and killed, a member of the CHOO gang tried to kill him also. That attempt failed. We allege that the person who did that shooting is a guy named Corey Henry. Corey Henry is a member of the CHOO. He tries to shoot and kill Shamel Boomer. He misses, and he strikes a 62-year-old innocent bystander who just happens to be there. But because that attempted killing had only happened 2 days before, and then 2 days later, Shamel Boomer is in fact murdered, the CHOO celebrate his death. And they antagonize it, and they're spinning it on social media, and they're celebrating the loss of life. Shamel Boomer, at some point, had been considered to be somewhat of a ranking member of the WOOO gang, and that really started a crusade of vengeance. You're going to see that much of the violence associated with this case is related to the hashtag booming for Boomer, and this one, sense of and twisted sense of loyalty that they're going to seek revenge for his murder. And so if you look on the TV screen right now, there's a couple of social media posts. On the right, you're going to see social media posts made by the WOOO. It says booming for Boomer. We continue to boom for Boomer. A month later, we're still booming for Boomer. And all of the related shootings that come from that incident. And on the left, you're going to see the CHOO response, and there's 3 responses there. Just take a look at my notes so I can read it to you. From the left, you'll see when we see the ops, we engage, and there's a emoji that's a symbol of the Folk Nation gang. Rule number 1, if you see a WOOO, start clicking and gunshots. And another one, if you WOOO back, I shoot at that. And so there's this sort of agreement to start shooting at each other and continue the violence. And this, to us, during the course of this investigation, really triggers the immediacy of the shootings. This happens now during COVID, and we saw, obviously, all of you are aware of the tremendous spike in shootings that took place during the 2020. And so this is one of the major triggers in Brownsville. The police department began this investigation shortly thereafter, and it's been a 2-year investigation to get to the bottom of these 19 shootings and 2 homicides. So one of the things that's particularly distressing for us in law enforcement is how social media and other things sort of continue to push out the message of retaliation and retribution. And here, we'll see the next slide. This is a hip hop video that was produced by a CHOO gang member. We're only going to watch a very small portion of it, but it's meant to continue boasting and to making threats against their rivals and simply what they call spinning them, antagonizing them. In it, if you listen carefully, you're going to hear a reference smoking on Boomer. That is a very significant, in gang culture, disrespect to the decedent. It means smoking on his ashes. It really inflames passions in gang culture. And what you're also going to see, and I think it's quite frankly outrageous, is in this video that the CHOO gang has produced, they show a picture of Sewell Boomer after he's been shot and on the ground in Brooklyn, lying and dying. And it's in the video, and they're celebrating this. It's going to be, we shortened it, it's going to be very quick. There'll be a crime scene tape right after, so the person laying on the ground is unfortunately Sewell Boomer. Let's play the video.
714 to the game. Fuck what they thinking, they know what I claim. Smoking on Boomer is on my brain. Me and my group that I put that on game. Feeling too cocky, I move what you want. Most of these niggas, they know they can't stop me.
It's unfortunate, and it's disgusting. This is what gang war is about. It's about boasting and bravado, juvenile one-upmanship. And the 2 murders that are charged as part of these conspiracy are exactly that. It's a CHOO member traveling into WOOO territory, seeing a member of the WOOO gang and killing them. And as this gang war escalated, Brownsville residents had to contend with increasing gun violence, hitting their streets time in and time after. And as you have already heard, and as you know from covering these stories, even the most innocent residents of our community are never safe. This next video is heartbreaking. It shows a street in Brooklyn. It happened in March. There's a CHOO gang member named Derek Habersham, and we allege that he was driven to the vicinity there of Riverdale and Thomas Boylan because he is intending to retaliate against a rival gang member. He's driven there by a female. She's the only female charged in this indictment, Princess Chambers. And we believe they're acting in concert. She drops him off. She drives around the corner. She waits for him. And what you're going to see is after he exits her vehicle, he walks towards a man. Well, first of all, he walks past a woman with 2 children, one she's pushing in the stroller. He then sees a man putting a child into a car seat in a car. And then there's another family, a man holding his daughter. And as he approaches the man who's loading his child into the car, he mistakes that person to be a rival gang member, and he begins firing his gun at least 4 or 5 times. He misses his target. Fortunately, that child that was in the car was fine, but tragically, a 3-year-old girl who was holding her dad's hand leaving daycare was in fact struck by a bullet in her body. Let's take a look at that video to see how brazen this individual is. That's him walking up the block. He's already past that other family. You'll see a better view. He's now shooting at the man who was loading his baby in the car. We're going to see a reverse angle, and you'll see him walk by all of these babies on the street. And then gets into the car, the princess is driving, and they get away. There he goes, he's walking, he's shooting. This is how the police identified him through articles of clothing and other connectors. Really incredible police work here. This is the view where you can really just see all the children walking in the street. He's walking, there's the family walking, baby in the stroller, another little baby walking, he walks right by them. Father is loading his baby into that vehicle on the left-hand side of your screen. That would be your right-hand side, which would be your left-hand side. It's hard when you look at it from my angle. Now, if you see around 12 o'clock, you'll see a little girl walking with her dad. He sees them. They're right there. Now he starts shooting at the guy at the car. That guy runs. And now our 3-year-old girl has been shot. Yes, she fortunately she did survive. She suffered a direct hit into the shoulder area of her body. Let's just quickly show there's where you can see some clothing. That's where the bullet hit her. Let's move on to the next slide. So the shooter, and the good news is that that shooter was arraigned earlier today, and the judge remanded him. The shooter realized that he really screwed up, and the police, during the course of the investigation, uncovered some private group chats, some messages he had sent to some people, and he sends it as his private chat. The very next day, he includes, because he does want to get credit for taking a shot at what he believes to be a rival. Mind you, that person was actually misidentified, was not involved in gang life. He includes a link to a news report about the shooting, and that's the news link you see on top. And then the subsequent message, if you see at the very bottom, it says, "Did bad." The understatement of understatements. But this gives you an idea of how investigators solve these cases. You know, combing through digital evidence, working with service providers and using subpoenas, compiling videos, matching clothing and other identifiable items worn by suspects, and carefully listening to their own words, describing their actions that they've taken through social media, posts, and other forms of electronic communications. These individuals want to get credit for the harm that they're doing, and they often talk about it. This work takes dedication and patience, and the work that you're seeing here today really highlights how the police department, has really used high-tech investigative strategies to solve cases that in the past may have not gotten solved. We had another shooting in April of 2021 that I think is also fairly compelling. You're going to see a CHOO gang member named Parnell Brown. Now, we believe that Parnell Brown had been targeted by WOOO members for some time, and a WOOO member named Davian Thompson, we allege, tried to run him over in the street in the car. What you're going to see is Parnell Brown walking on the street, trying to cross, and you're going to see a car kind of slightly veer to its right and then immediately strike him. After Parnell Brown is struck by this vehicle driven by a rival gang member, I want you to pay attention to what Parnell Brown does next. Let's play the video. All right, that's him. In the red, the car now is swerving right there, starting to swerve to the right. And as he's there, he's struck right dead center of the vehicle. He's knocked on top of the hood. He falls off. The vehicle now tries and engages in reckless driving to get away, and that's him running. He's now chasing the car that just hit him. And you'll see a better view, but he is shooting multiple shots at the vehicle in the middle of a very crowded, busy intersection. All right, let's see it again. That's him. He's waiting for someone to pick him up, and bang, struck intentionally, we allege. Falls off. Gets up. And now he is shooting. It's a miracle that no one else got shot or hit by that car. You see how reckless the getaway driver is doing. See people reacting to the shooting. There you go, clear as day, gun in his hand, firing. Now you may wonder how the police have got the driver. Well, it was really good detective work. They tracked that vehicle from Pitkin Avenue in Brooklyn and followed that car all the way into Manhattan, where eventually the vehicle stopped. Let's see the rest of that video. So he's now out of the vehicle. He's looking at the front end to see if he has any damage, and he is walking into the luxury retailer Saks Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Here's some of the clothing that he was worn and recovered. And there he is, now shopping at Saks Fifth Avenue, straight from the scene of the hit and run, straight to Saks Fifth Avenue, where he's actually meeting up with, he's with a group of guys that he's meeting up with. And they're just shopping. We can move past that. But it's an example of the brilliant investigative work that the police department did. You know, being able to track that car, follow that car. There's been some other work done that I'm not going to describe, how we know it's the same person, so we can make an identification. I'm going to quickly show you two more shootings. Now, fortunately, in these two shootings, no one was struck in either one, but they demonstrate what we're talking about, this brazen disregard for human life that characterizes this particular gang activity in Brownsville. In the video, you're going to see two people, Isaiah Feliciano and another person named Jalen Ortiz. We allege that Jalen Ortiz is serving as a lookout. You'll see him kind of looking back and forth. Up the block, there's some rival gang members in a car, and Isaiah Feliciano, we allege, pulls out what appears to be a machine gun, a Tech 9 machine gun, and he starts firing. He's aiming at a car that's slightly off camera. Let's watch the video. Jalen is the one that's behind him, and Isaiah Feliciano has the multicolored jacket that you can see. Now, if you see, he already has the gun out. It's a huge gun. It's in his hands. They're looking at the rivals. His co-defendant is telling him what he sees, we allege. Now he starts to shoot, and you can see the rapid pace, which is, that gun was not recovered during this investigation, but is consistent with a Tech 9 handgun. There's one last one shooting. Again, the intended targets were not struck. In this case, I raise it because it just shows you how precarious, innocent victims can be taken out. And this is a chance encounter at a doctor's office. So there's a member of the WOOO and a member of the CHOO that wind up in the same medical office. When we allege that Lawrence Cook goes to this medical doctor's office, I believe it's actually a dentist office. He goes there and he sees fairly a prominent CHOO gang member also in the office. Based on phone records and other information, he makes a phone call to two co-defendants, Elijah Griffith and Avante Stephen, to come. They come to the doctor's office. They peek in. They see the rival CHOO gang member in there, and they lie in wait for approximately 45 minutes till he comes out. When this individual comes out, he's coming out with his mother, baby sister, and little brother, and they start walking to the family car, and you can see what happens next. There's the family right there. They're walking to that car in the corner. They're going to get in the car, and I'm going to direct your attention across the street where the tan building is. You're going to see two people sort of emerge as they're entering the car. And we allege that Griffith is the actual shooter in this case. So they're still entering the car. There's the first person. Here's his colleague. Now, they had checked out the medical office. Family is just about getting into the car. You see there's traffic. They go in front of the food market there. The family is now in the car getting ready to go on with their business. And right there, they start shooting multiple shots, striking the car. You see the family, driven by the mother, escaping. There's no regard for who's around, whether it's caregivers or elders or children. There's no thinking about the terrible consequences that this behavior is causing in their community. They're simply going to shoot on sight at rival gang members. We're never going to tolerate that behavior in Brooklyn. Never. And we're going to continue to make it the number one focus of our office effort to stem gun violence. I know that the police department will never stand for this conduct, and we're going to work together collaboratively to identify these individuals, to build strong cases, and to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. We're going to bring down shootings and murders as we have over the past 2 years in Brooklyn, and these are going to play an important part in that strategy, which is to remove the most violent individuals from our streets. Today, we filed 4 indictments totaling 106 counts, which include conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to possess weapons, homicide charges, attempted homicide charges, reckless endangerment, and multiple weapons possession charges. We fully intend to hold these individuals that you've briefly seen today fully accountable for their conduct. The maximum sentence for almost every defendant is at least 15 years, with a majority of them facing upwards of 25 years and some of them facing life sentences. In addition to this indictment, we've started the process of reaching out to the community and stakeholders of Brownsville to let the tenant association members know, and stakeholders and clergy and our elected officials, of what's happening here, because I think it's important that we are fully transparent and explain to them the actions that are taking place. I think it's part of the healing process, and we believe that if we can continue to work with our communities, we'll have a better understanding of their needs and what it takes them to feel safe in their own communities. So far, the feedback we've received has been very positive and very appreciative that we've taken these violent individuals out of their community. Earlier this year, I released a Stop Violence report, and in that report, we created a new digital evidence lab here that allows us to do a lot of the extractions from cell phones and social media and other things. And I want to thank the folks from the digital evidence lab that worked on this case. I think it's going to allow us to better prosecute many of these violent crimes, including gun crimes. It's an ongoing effort to do this in work with the police department. We've also committed more personnel and hired more personnel, people to my left, to work directly on gun violence. And the police department has reduced gun violence in the city by at least 15% so far this year. It's moving in the right direction, but this is not something that we can ever take our foot off the gas, and we have to continue to fight this. And I want to thank the police department for their partnership on all of the work that they do, but in particular, the Gun Violence Suppression Unit and the Violence Reduction Task Force that works with them to really focus in on these cases. It's so important that we solve these past shootings, because that's the only way we're going to prevent the cycle of retribution and retaliation from continuing. I want to thank, again, all of the officers in the 7th precinct who've been working here, their squad, and the great detectives that you see to my right, and then my team to my left, including the senior ADAs, Kelly Maloney and Daniel Stern, who worked to put this in the grand jury, and the supervisor, Catherine Spoda, and Jen Cilia and Al DeAngelis. It really does take a team to put these cases into the grand jury, to put all this evidence before the jury. You just saw a snippet of the 106 counts that we put in before the jury. It took many weeks and months to get all this information before our grand jury. And now we're going to hear from our great police commissioner. We're going to take questions. I ask that the questions be related to the case, and just be respectful of the police commissioner time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to acknowledge the valued partnership the NYPD has with DA Gonzalez and the team of professionals here at the Brooklyn DA's office. Collectively, today, we have significant results for the people of Brownsville, of Brooklyn, and for the city of New York. As DA Gonzalez detailed, these defendants were responsible for 2 murders and multiple shootings, and more than a dozen shooting victims, including a 3-year-old child. Indiscriminate violence that terrorized the residents of 10 different housing developments. We have taken these criminals off our streets, and together we will endeavor to keep them off. Among the highest priorities of the NYPD and our law enforcement partners is focusing our resources on precision policing, focusing on those responsible for the majority of crime and violence in this city. It is our commitment to rid our streets of illegal guns, those brazen enough to use them, and anyone who victimizes or preys on the people of this city. Multiple firearms were seized over the course of this 2.5-year investigation, and we are proud of the exceptional work in this case. The members of the NYPD Gun Violence Suppression Unit, led by their chief, Jason Savino, together with the skilled professionals of the Brooklyn DA's office, Violent Criminal Enterprises Bureau. These investigators work through more than 100 criminal counts to ensure that we hold these gang members accountable, and we will not stop. For some further details about this case, I'll turn it over to Chief Jason Savino.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you to the DA. And thank you to everybody seated out here. Just by the showing and looking at people's reaction, I can tell that you share our passion to eliminating gun violence. So good afternoon, I'm Deputy Chief Jason Savino, and throughout the year, our gun violence suppression team has been faced with the challenge of decreasing gun violence for our beautiful public. We promised to do every single thing possible to decrease and ultimately try to eliminate gun violence and keep our great public safe. We even called out gang members. We gave them the opportunity to shape up, or we may ultimately see them. We asked them to do the right thing. We let them know ahead of time that our mission and obligation would be fully dedicated to addressing the senseless gun violence that places our community members in harm's way. some didn't listen. And as promised, we are standing here once again, and I'm just so proud to announce that today, our beloved Brooklyn is just a bit safer, with some of the worst of the absolute worst now in custody. But before I go into the investigation, I just have to extend just extreme gratitude to our case detective, John LaMariana, who just worked relentlessly, along with many of our partners, which I'll ultimately circle back to. But John really stood out and just showcased one-of-a-kind dedication and passion, really as passionate as I've ever seen, towards one objective, keeping our public safe. Also have to mention just briefly our team supervisors, Captain Ryan Gillis and Sergeant Yancey Blow, who ultimately provided just enormous guidance throughout this case. And I just need to note also that I'm just so blessed with an entire team at Gun Violence Suppression Division. We consider and treat the members of our community much like family. We take our purpose and goal of protecting our great public, we take it to heart, we take it personal. So today's announcement, along with those to come, it shows NYPD will remain absolutely relentless in combating this irrational gun violence. Let's get right into the case. So Wooville is an investigation addressing several gangs that fall under the WOOO and CHOO umbrellas. When we talk WOOO, we're really talking Gorilla Stone Bloods, and under the CHOO, the folks in the Mac Ballers, like the good DA mentioned earlier. We utilized our next level precision policing policies and addressed the right subjects. You have to remember, even amongst gangs, there's very few shooters, these alphas that really endanger everybody around them. This is who we build our cases around. Case in point, 32 subjects in this investigation. 30 of them have either been arrested for a shooting or allegedly charged with a shooting with this new indictment. So on at least one occasion, and we have many others with more than one. Why do I mention this? These are the trigger pullers. These are that small group of individuals that make it downright dangerous for all the great people in our communities. We'll speak to the gangs as a whole. In a word, reckless. As reckless as we've ever seen. You witnessed the videos. It paints a picture. These gangs would shoot at their oppositions in vicinity of high schools, daycare centers, MTA buses, and densely and highly populated areas. No regard for anybody in the area. These are subjects that woke up every single day just to live the life exclusively to benefit their gang. Every single member in the community knows exactly who these individuals are. Why? Because they make daily living life uncomfortable and downright dangerous, not only for themselves, but for everyone around them. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. You rarely see crews with dominance of this magnitude, with the influence and threshold that these gangs held over a relatively small area. Have to note, much of the violence, and I'll echo once again the DA's sentiment, much of the violence fueled by drill raps, where subjects call out opposing members, challenging their opposition to engage in violence, mocking those that are deceased at the hands of gun violence. DSAV, a self-proclaimed best drill rapper in Brooklyn. Two of his most popular drills, Blicky in a Box and Folk in a Trunk, both make references to multiple homicide victims. They actually mock their death, the utmost humiliation. Now, these drills that I just mentioned, those two drills, have upwards of 10 million YouTube views. Now, just take a moment to think about that. Think of the audience that they're reaching. Our children are listening to this. Displaying firearms is routine and shooting at other gangs glorified. And the insults have no limits. Now, what do these insults do? They create that on-site atmosphere. So because of the challenges mentioned in these drills, opposing teams or ops would also carry firearms, and they would shoot at each other the moment they saw each other, hence the phrase on site. Now this just creates just a dangerous atmosphere for our public. Consider the following ages: 62, 60, 17, 17, and 3. These are ages of victims that were shot during this investigation. This is the wisdom and the children of our community, shot due to the just sheer disrespect for life that these gangs show. I'd like to speak once again to our 3-year-old shot in the shoulder. It demands repeating. Now, words cannot describe the horror that victim's family and caretakers experienced that day. As the daycare was dismissed and a high school in close proximity, as our subject, without remorse or regret, fired shots, striking our little Tierra. Now, we all know fired bullets have no names, a theme we've seen tragically far too many times. These gangs terrorized our streets, and we're here to say, quite proudly once again, no more. So right now, in all, 28 subjects are now in custody as a result of our investigation. Just want to quickly note, this is one of numerous takedowns our Gun Violence Suppression Division has initiated. Now the holidays are approaching, and our teams will not let up. We will continue to address every gang in this city, every street in this city, and every trigger puller in this city. The cases we initiate are far-reaching, affecting, and protecting the entire city. The best part is there's a lot more to come. With that being said, to our gangbangers out there, if you are the worst of the worst, if you recklessly engage in gun violence and endanger our great communities, if you are one of those few individuals that make the daily life of our great people dangerous and uncomfortable and feel no remorse about it, don't wait. I will say it again. Do the right thing. Do it for your family. Do it for your community. But change now, or we may see you soon. A lot of kudos just to go around to bring us here. Our Brooklyn investigative chiefs, Joe Galata, Fernando Gamarez, I know you're out there, along with our Brooklyn squads, particularly that 7-3 squad and the homicide squad, all partners throughout this investigation. The 7-3 precinct and housing safety teams responsible for many of the guns that you see on the table in front of you. Our entire team at warrants, really as good as they come anywhere. Our DA, Eric Gonzalez, dedicating your team's partnership. Al DeGeneres, Kelly Maloney. We really held hands throughout this investigation. Our Chief of Detectives, Jimmy Essick, we simply couldn't ask for a better mentor and coach. And our Police Commissioner. We are absolutely honored to serve you. But lastly, and I say it often, but it bears repeating, there's a special thanks to the community that we serve. Our community. This is why we became cops, to improve the quality of life, keep our great members safe. We are the gatekeepers. We tackled our mission collectively, and as a result, our community is safer. Thank you.
Are there any questions? At the time of arrest, the youngest person is 18, but during the course of the investigation, may have been as young as 15 or 16 when this investigation started in early 2020. But what we continue to see is that, by the time a lot of our young people are in high school, they're fully entrenched in gang life. Well, as we've heard, these are the worst of the worst of the gangs. These are the people in the gangs who are most likely to be carrying firearms and to be shooting. And if quite frankly, there's two ways that the interruption of retaliation and retribution happen. It either happens because gang members continue to shoot and kill each other and take out who they're aiming for, or they get a law enforcement response and we're able to identify them, arrest them, and then stop the violence from occurring. And the residents of Brownsville who don't want to be caught in this crossfire, that is the best option, that we go ahead and we find the people responsible for these shootings. It's why there's been an emphasis made in this office with the police department to go back and solve older cases, because that harm and that anger is not unabated unless there's this action taken. We separate folks and we separate them from our community. Historically, whenever we've taken one of these takedowns, we'll see an increase in the peace. And the people of Brownsville, as I said, we've already been in communication with them, and they're very happy that these men are off the street. Several, and at least 4 that we've identified right now. There's there's 6, but you saw the videos. There are people scrambling for their lives. This is terrifying work. This is the fear that's so palatable on the streets, and this is why it's such a focus. And we should say that gun violence in Brownsville has been down 2 years in a row, but imagine if we can get these people off the street, and these 19 shootings that took place in that community, how much safer it will be. Yes.
Yes, this is something we routinely do. I mean, thus far, 7 takedowns for Gun Violence Suppression Division this year. And at each one, there's opportunity out there for individuals. There's opportunity to change. I'm a member of the Mayor's Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. And when you see the opportunities to evade exactly what we're seeing today, that's what we give the opportunity for. We want people to do the right thing. But for those that don't, then there will be consequence. I mean, as far as measuring it, that's hard to measure. Obviously, shootings are down right now, so that's one indicator. I'd like to think if we touch one individual out there right now, that's one added for our count. But yeah, I mean, we get a lot of different variables, and it also depends on individuals' honesty. I mean, through every really opportunity that we have accessible, we're getting feedback where individuals, they don't want to become subjects, like we see today. It does have harsh consequences, and criminality has to have consequences. But as always, we would much prefer for people to just do the right thing.
I'll let the police department, but it's a lot of direct communication through encrypted apps, and but a lot of the work, a lot of it is an invitation to engage in gun violence. What they'll do is they'll post a Facebook Live or Instagram Live saying, "I'm here in your territory. What are you going to do about it?" But if there's more specifics that you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to describe it is what we saw on the screen. Individuals, they want to get credit for everything they do, and the goal and really the potential clout, quite honestly, we have to take a step back at times, but they're not hiding much. They're communicating, social media, they're calling people out with these drill raps, they're not hiding anything. Now, obviously, investigatively, we need a lot more than just that to get to this point, and that's all the investigative measures that we take that corroborate some of the facts that are brought forward. But certainly, there's so many moving parts and so many different pieces until it comes to fruition. But a lot of individuals are not hiding anything right now, and if that's the case, then we're willing to intercept it.
It's ongoing. I believe there's 4. Right before we started the press conference, there were 4 people who have not been apprehended yet. They may be in custody by now. Teams are out there looking for them, and the arraignment process has started. So we'll have our communications team tell you what the bail status and remand status is of all the defendants once they've been arraigned. I should note that when they were brought into Central Booking, they were rival gang members, and they caused quite a commotion inside Central Booking, trying to get at each other even while in custody. So, we know we have the right people in custody, and as you see during the course of this investigation, this is only some of the guns that this investigation has revealed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for covering this. Thank you so much.